Hey everybody, it's Wisp, and today I really wanted to get into Fire Emblem Engage and talk about a theory that I've had for quite a while, actually. This theory being, who is the Emblem of Foundations, or the 14th Emblem, or Sombron's Emblem, and so on, whatever you want to call him, them, it, whatever it may be. And okay, so the first thing I want to just get out of the way is there is every possibility that this is a brand new, never before experienced character, or that it is just some random mythical character, any godlike being in Fire Emblem, or ancient legend in Fire Emblem like Henri, that Fire Emblem couldn't be the same without. It could always be any of them, but there's not enough evidence for me to stick to saying it is one of them, and really any guess in that rank is as good as any other guess in that rank, so that's not really where I want to spend my time. Instead, I want to focus on 3 alternative theories on who this emblem could be. Theory number 1, and I think potentially the most out there theory that I've come up with at least, is that it's actually Sami. I don't have too much evidence for this one, but Sami does rest on a pedestal that looks a lot like the emblem's pedestals, except Sami stands there instead of there being a ring, and if Sombron's been looking for this ring forever, maybe he's missing the most obvious places because he's not just seeing the emblem's physical form, which would mean that Sami came from this universe in the first place. Maybe Sami's spirit was something else at the time, but emblems do come from a different universe oftentimes. There's nothing new there. All of the emblems in the main game come from their own home universes. So if Sami was in Sombron's universe, and then Sami and Sombron came over together, but Sami happened to be back home, and he randomly appeared and has thus been there since time immemorial, because he always belonged there, but he wasn't there at first. I think Sami's actually a fair guess as to who might be that emblem. There's also a little bit of other evidence being that Sombron did mention looking for the Emblem of Foundations in dark and gloomy places, and Sami is inside of that little tower ring. Also, Sami's a dog, and dog is man's best friend. Maybe when Sombron needed it most, he had this dog/cat-like being with him. Again, I think that's the loosest and most zany one, but it does tie together a few small things, so I think it's a really fun theory to talk about. Theory number 2, and the theory that I'm a little bit, I think, leaning toward of the 3, I think the Emblem of Foundations might be the same as the Fire Emblem, and I know that sounds weird, but the first thing to just get out of the way is emblems have a lot of names. Micaiah is the Emblem of Dawn, also the Emblem of the Shrine Maiden, I believe. The Ring of the Shrine Maiden, perhaps. They have a few different titles that they go by. So I do actually think it's really likely, in fact, that Alear is, or was, the Emblem of Foundations. And just to clarify that a little bit, I don't think necessarily that the Alear we played as, or even the Alear who lost their memories 1,000 years ago. By the way, I do tend to play male Alear, so if I slip into he, him, that's no disrespect, it's just what I'm used to. Alear is a very kind, compassionate, and caring person, okay? Now, the first thing I want to set up is that this is a multiversal game. All of the DLC is hinting that there is a second universe that we will probably visit in DLC 4. Even the new Somniel feature, The Well, talks about another universe or another dimension. This might kind of come from things like Awakening's Outroam Gates, or even Lucina crossing the timeline and creating a separate timeline. There's a few things that Fire Emblem has set a precedent for as far as alternate timelines or alternate universes. Fates did the same thing. 3 houses, instead of each route being a, well, what if Byleth chose this house? It was a completely different universe, like Route A and Route B had inconsistencies. You just had to accept that the timelines were different. There's nothing new in Fire Emblem setting up an entirely new timeline in the same game. Another really important thing is that reincarnation or semi-reincarnation isn't new to Fire Emblem. In the original game, if you lose Tiki, then Nagi could show up as a playable character, and though she is not Tiki or Naga, she has the same abilities and the same presence as both of them. Alm and Celica are semi-reincarnations. That's not a real term, but Alm and Celica are Milla and Duma's human incarnations that exist simultaneously with them and are branded by them. So that's really what I mean when I say things like semi-reincarnation. The other thing is when dragons die in Fire Emblem, they leave behind energy, regardless of how that happens. Milla and Duma, that does mean the dragon tree is sprouted and born. Well, if the Emblem of Foundations was a dragon or godlike being, Here's how I think things might have played out. Thousands of years ago, Sombron's city timeline, his entire people were attacked, and they were being killed out. One emblem, an especially kind and friendly emblem, took care of Sombron and tried to protect the young 3-year-old Sombron, followed him to Elios, this world. That emblem, like others do when portals get tougher or they are forced to fight in another universe that they're not used to being in when they cross through portals, we see all of the emblems die. Maybe that happens here too. Maybe the emblem just can't take it. But that energy doesn't just go away. Emblem energy is a godlike presence. So I think what could have happened is that emblem dispersed into the air or whatever. But its closest friend, Sombron, somehow had some of it connected to him. And when Sombron had children, eventually one of them was largely inspired by the Emblem of Foundations. I think Alir was born as sort of a semi-reincarnation, not literally the Emblem of Foundations, but the Emblem of Foundations energy put into a new human form. The miracle ends up happening on Alir, which is partially, you could say, fate, because Alir's connection to the emblems has always been there, but also partially personality. The Emblem of Foundations was heroic enough to be an emblem, so when a person like them was born, it was an emblem as well, or would become one at least. I think there's a really clear through line on how that could work. And the reason that I think that this makes a lot of sense, the evidence I see in-game, well, first of all, when Sombron's dying, he starts talking about seeing the Emblem of Foundations. That could just be a dying man trying to make peace with what's happening to him. But I also can't shake a feeling that maybe he's literally looking at the Emblem of Foundations. He's seeing Alir for who they really are for the first time, recognizing the kindness. He's saying he would do it all again because he gets to see his friend one more time. And it's dark because Alir is obviously saying, like, no, this isn't the way, don't do this. But despite everything Sombron's done, Alir is working to give this person peace. Alir genuinely wants Sombron to have a relatively happy death, in spite of everything. That very much does feel like what little bit we get from the Emblem of Foundations. Save the part where the Emblem of Foundations is known, according to Sombron, for being able to take on entire armies alone, whereas Alir's quite the opposite. Alir relies entirely on his friends and his allies and the bonds that Alir makes throughout the journey. But that difference is easily enough explained because they're, first of all, from different times, and secondly, Alir used to be like that. The red hair Alir was a general, and we saw that they were afraid, they didn't like it. Maybe the Emblem of Foundations did what they had to do, but they were afraid as well. Alir is also called the Fire Emblem, and while the Emblem of Foundations incantation from Sombron is burn us, Emblem of Foundations, Alir, the Fire Emblem, is connect us. Now, fire and foundations. Fire is a foundation for a lot of things in many societies, as well as the Fire Emblem games. I mean, fire's a core part of it, in a sense, but also forged in fire sorts of talks. The incantation being burned does relate directly to fire. The incantations are different. Well, Lumera at the beginning asks Alir what incantation he used to summon Marth. So it's possible that incantations are, or at least can be, different, and the reason we see the same ones in game is because that's what people heard, that's what was established, and it worked. You hold those words in your heart, and you give them meaning. You speak it out, and you make it work. It's sort of the emblem's incantation has the meaning we give it idea. Oh, that's fine and good, but why wouldn't Sombron have recognized Alir at the beginning? Maybe Alir didn't really look like the friend after so many years have passed. Maybe some physical changes happened. Maybe the Emblem of Foundations was 30 years older and buff and giant, or perhaps Alir just doesn't give off the same powerful energy that Sombron remembered because Sombron's memories were distorted, considering he was roughly 3 when he had this friend. These things happen. The message of Alir saying connect us versus Sombron saying burn us. Sombron was very much trying to use this emblem to burn bridges and become one, whereas Alir was trying to connect everybody through bonds and friendship and all that good stuff. Very much it could be people using the same power for different purposes. And it adds to the tragedy that Sombron was searching so desperately for this friend who ended up being born again as his child. But beyond the fact that Sombron was just willing to sacrifice children, but beyond that, it also extends because Sombron misunderstood. The entire time he knew or thought he knew this emblem that was one of his closest friends, the only person he ever truly called a friend at that, he misunderstood the message. He didn't get who this person was. I think it's pretty sad, and it does add to Sombron as a character and as a tragedy. Okay, but what if it's not? What if it's not Alear? It's got nothing to do with that storyline. My third theory as to who it could be is maybe more of a literal term on Foundations. I think it would be a Heroes OC, and I know that sounds like it comes from out of nowhere, but Fire Emblem Engage is largely inspired by games like Awakening and Heroes, and connecting these universes, connecting these timelines. The Emblem of Foundations, by the way, is someone who crossed universes at least once, and throughout Engage, we do see that emblems tend to follow similar paths to people in their lives, which, what I mean by that is, Emblem Sigurd and Emblem Lumera have a very similar story with their child and how raising their child kind of goes for them. But I also mean that, think about when Emblem Corrin met somebody. When Emblem Corrin spoke to somebody, she found a dancer who danced under the moonlight for completely different reasons and a completely different dance. But she found the most similar person in this world to Azura, a close friend. When Emblem Micaiah needed somebody, she found another troubled child raised as an assassin. Not like Sylph very much, but their baseline is similar. They have a similar beginning, and maybe the closest we have. So, following that trend, I would guess that Sombron, being someone who would be moving between dimensions, is someone that Emblem of Foundations reminded him of. Going from there, Heroes is a game about doing that. But the title Foundations, there's two people it could really be, well, several, but one being Alphonse. Alphonse jumps through timelines. That's literally part of his story. It's what he does. He's also smart, and he's seen Fire Emblems from all across the Fire Emblem games. So he could literally be a source of Foundations in the sense that maybe he creates a Fire Emblem for Heroes. We still don't know what the Heroes Fire Emblem item is. Barring that, I think that this could mean something outside of that scope. Another OC, the OC who created Asker or created the Summoning Gate or Bradlebick, anything like that. It adds Veronica's bracelet into the lore a little bit because most bracelets do have a ring associated and Foundations is a ring. It makes sense that even if this character isn't someone we meet or find out is the Emblem Foundations for years of real time, I think that they could be building up to that or holding on to that information. If that's the case, I do think the Emblem Foundations will be like endgame Heroes stuff, and whether or not they even talk about it only depends on how Engage is received in the future. But it'll be kind of neat if, like, 6 years from now, and Heroes sadly ends, we see, oh shoot, Alphonse was actually the Emblem Foundations all along, and Alphonse crossed universes with Sombron. Could have met Alear, but his emblem died earlier, you know, whatever. I actually think it could be kind of cool and create some sort of a tie with Alphonse, who was missing from this world. Veronica makes a lot of sense due to her popularity and her being kind of unique, and that she also is the only emblem with dark magic. Like, I get why she would be chosen over him. But it would be cool to tie him in, since he is the main character of one of the spin-offs. That is kind of a mainline spin-off, almost. Those are 3 theories I have. Personally, I think the Emblem of Foundations, if ever revealed, will be Alear themselves, or rather, a Milla is to Alm sort of person to Alear. A god that died and got reincarnated, sort of, but only half reincarnated. Like a very loose interpretation of reincarnation to Alear. I thought all the theories were really fun. I really wanted to share them. Other than that, that is what I've got for you today. Thank you so much for your time, and take care. Until next time.